Hello, friend and colleague. It is Nikki from Full Voice Music on our season finale show, episode 208. I'm talking about that student. Actually, I'm talking about all of the students, those students that challenged you, that frustrated you, that made you run and change your policies immediately. We're talking about the ghosts of students past, and we're talking about what they can teach us and how we can become better business owners and better teachers right here on the Full Voice Podcast. Hello, friends. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for pressing play. I am so glad you're here. I have so many friends and colleagues that I know are listening, and I want to send each and every one of you a big hug from Hemford Forest, Nova Scotia. We have been enjoying a beautiful summer. It's been sunny and warm, and I'm not going to lie, I might have been in my garden just a few moments ago and enjoying all the butterflies and all the wonderful things that happen when you get to enjoy nature, and I'm very grateful for that. I also am very grateful for the Full Voice team, Sean, Mim, Bethany, Heidi, and all our composers. We have been working very hard, and my team works very hard. And shout out to my team that keeps me on task, because that is no easy feat. I have lots of ideas and I want to take action on them immediately. We have so many wonderful things, and I want to just do some quick announcements before I dive into this really important topic and hopefully a helpful topic. And full disclosure, I'm being very vulnerable, and I am sharing some of my not so amazing moments as a teacher, as a business owner. But when I reflect back, there's those students, those students who probably taught us more than we taught them. That is something, and it's hard. It's hard to reflect on that. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, oh my goodness. If you are listening to this podcast at time of release, it is July 2025. And as much as we still have weeks of glorious summer left, most of you, I know you are thinking ahead, planning ahead, because as always, the back to school season is just around the corner, and we want to get started in our season. Of course, we got to think about things like, schedules and planning and students and all of that. I want you to know that the team at Full Voice, we are here for you, and we're going to be doing a series of sales and promotions through the next month to help you get started with a really phenomenal year. So we've got some courses and workshops that are coming up. And of course, we have our seasonal song sale, which is coming up. So if you are looking for teacher and kid tested and adored music, please go check out our website. It's so well organized by age, by topic, by grade level. But we're going to have a lot of promotions and sales coming up in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So if you have not signed up for our newsletter, please do so. Go to fullvoicemusic.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Then in the newsletter, you can also hear about our live office hours. So we do a free teacher training, a free webinar every single month. Well, not in the summer because, again, break. But starting in September, we will be doing our live office hours. And those live office hours, those workshops, those webinars are based on all of your questions. So if you would like to participate in a live office hours, which is just a friendly Zoom room, you're come to the Full Voice Zoom room, you have some fun, you can bring your lunch, you can relax, you can come in your pajamas. It's totally fine. But we talk about really important topics in the voice studio, and we have guests. We've had some amazing guests last year. So please sign up for our newsletter. Now, if you miss the live webinar, friends, all of our live office hours live on our YouTube channel. And all the links are in the show notes. But of course, you could go to YouTube and just type in Full Voice Music and you would find us. So all of our live office hours live there. So if you missed the episode on helping students with pitch, it's there. If you missed the episode about updating your lesson policies, it's there. There's a lot of great information. So please check that out. Now, my goodness. This conversation, I'm actually really excited to have it. This was an aha moment during the practice, progress, and success workshop. One of the conversations I had with the teachers, one of the comments that was made is, when you know better, you do better, right? And as a teacher, well, professional development is something that is ongoing. Podcasts happen to be fantastic professional development. Convenient, free, easy to access. But we were talking about, the more you learn, the better you can serve your students. And I certainly have felt that every time I do a course, every time I do a learning, anytime I have a learning opportunity, I'm grateful for the new information so that I can serve my students better. But it always makes me go back and think about those students that I could have served better. And those are the students that keep me up at night. The student that I didn't make the connection with, or the student that quit after only a few lessons, or even the student that was a longtime student, but then there was just a really sad type of, sad apathy to the lessons at the end, and it kind of ended on a less than exciting note, right? We've all experienced that in our studios. But I was telling the participants in our workshop about the learning cohort I had done learning about executive function. And executive function is a very trendy word right now. It's usually aligned with ADHD and learning and all of that. And I want to shout out to Tara Sumpner. She is an SLP and a executive function expert. And I want you to follow her. I'm going to put links in the show notes to Tara's Instagram. Her posts on her Instagram are beautiful little teaching moments, and they're so helpful. And just to prove to you how helpful they are, her most recent post that I just saw, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is good information. She was talking about, these are 5 students, and they all did not hand in their homework, and they did not hand in their homework for 5 different reasons. What? Yes. So please follow Tara. She's so lovely, and her work is just wonderful. Anyhow, in learning all of the things that I learned about executive function, about childhood development, how all of the cognitive processes that we are developing, one, it helped me with my own son. Actually, I have a 15-year-old. His birthday was yesterday. And as a young adult, an adolescent moving into being a young adult, I get frustrated with him because I assume that he should have certain understanding, which he does not. And again, if you have a better understanding of his executive function skills, you know that our adolescents are developing a lot of them. I have more, not a lot, but I have more patience with my son. And I am able to reflect on my response before I totally lose my marbles on him. Anyhow, so the conversation, in learning all of these things, it made me think of so many students in my past that I probably did not serve as well as I could have because I was missing information. So that's basically what this podcast is about. We're talking about all of the students in our past that, maybe we missed an opportunity. Maybe they encouraged us or forced us to change our policies like really quickly. But anyhow, so I'm gonna go through it, and I hope that you have an open heart and some courage, because I'm gonna ask some hard questions. What is that phrase? I love this phrase. Within great challenge, there is always opportunity. Something like that. Anyhow, you know what I'm saying. All right, so let's dive in here. So, let's talk about student number 1. Those students that came to you that made you stop and think, am I actually any good at teaching singing? Right? Those ones that came in and just you didn't make the connection and the information wasn't getting through, and maybe they asked questions. Maybe you gave them instructions and nothing changed. Right? Like you're telling them, "No, try this, try that." Nothing's going on. Um those are challenging students. And if I can say something with love, the, our teaching and musician egos are very, very fragile. It really doesn't take much to knock a caring human with a creative heart off of their game. And it doesn't take much really to have it doesn't take much, a student that questions, maybe they question the exercise. Well, why are you making me do this? And you think, well, I don't know. Why am I making you do this? So here's my question. When you had the student who made you feel a little insecure or question, maybe it even was the genre that they wanted to sing. That's so common in our studios, right? They want to sing a different style of music that maybe we've never sung before. So when that student bumped up against you and didn't get your jive, um, did you reframe your teaching? Did you try something different? DSD? Did you do something different? Was it more of they were testing your patience, right? That happens a lot, you know? Maybe their progress was like really slow and it made you feel like you weren't doing a good job. That is a huge teacher trap. We've talked about that a lot in our podcast. We talk about that a lot in all of our workshops. Your value as a teacher is not measured by how quickly students progress. We get really wrapped up in that. So, if you're thinking right now about that student that maybe exposed a blind spot in your teaching, what was your next steps? Did you look for the information? Did you investigate more training? Did you take a step back and reflect? Now, this leads me to my next comment or point or student, right? There is a lot of language and a lot of discussion about, and I'm doing air quotes here, students not being a good fit, right? And it is true. Absolutely 100% true. You can have a student. If somebody came to me asking for classical training, they would not be a good fit for me. But I think we have to be careful because it's easy to slap the you were not a good fit on that student without reflecting on why we feel they weren't a good fit. So sometimes we use I'm not going to say excuse, that reason as a deflection, right? And if we slap the you're not a good fit on it, we don't have to dive into, our approach or why we weren't a good fit. So I think it's really important to ask yourself, what is underneath the statement when you say that student's not a good fit? Is there something there? Is there an opportunity there? Right? Sometimes the not a good fit students are the ones that bump up against our boundaries, or they question our studio policies, or they completely don't even abide by our studio policies. I have to tell everybody that right now outside my husband's window, because his studio faces a forest, there is a teeny tiny little black and white warbler. Google it. It's super cute. And he's just living his best life. Just a little nature moment for you there. All right. Back to our conversation. So those not a good fit students, or sometimes not a good fit family, sometimes it's because they just bump against our policies, our boundaries. Maybe it's a system in our studio that's just not working for them. The families that never ever use the My Music Staff family portal. So sometimes those students might be letting us know that maybe we need a stronger intake onboarding process. So maybe we need to make adjustments to our studio policy, right? So when you are saying this student is not a good fit, look deeper, determine what is underneath that statement, and is there opportunity for you to improve either a system, a boundary, a policy, a way of communicating. You'd be surprised that sometimes those not a good fit might have been a good fit had we done things differently. Something to think about. Now, one of the challenges, and I'm going to share some stories about this. A lot of teachers ask about like student behavior, right? Student behavior. And I certainly have had challenges in the past with students that are really fidgety, students that are defiant, students that just, there's just something about them that just makes it difficult to teach them. It's important to note, and again, this is one of those things when you know better, you do better. In understanding childhood development and understanding that behavior is communication. Behavior is communication. So instead of getting upset and angry, you want to stay curious. What is this behavior telling me? Now, I struggled forever with one of my longtime students, he came to me as a very young boy. I had him into his early teens. He could not stay still. He would fidget endlessly. And there was one day where he was fidgeting and twisting the music stand to the point where he actually pulled it off. The top of the music stand, he pulled it off. And the pencil went flying and his music went flying. And I was like, oh, seriously. He would play with pencils until he broke them. He would grab at his clothes. He would twist his clothes. And for the longest time, I really struggled with that. It annoyed me. It was irritating. And I would try everything. I would challenge him. Please stay still. Da, 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 da. As many of you have learned over the years, children need to move. Humans need to move. It is not them being defiant or trying to make you angry or trying to upset you or trying to annoy you. It is literally their brains telling them to move. It is how they have to be in that space. And when I finally stopped fighting with him and just let him try a different learning station in my room, so we did more warm-ups sitting down. Yeah. And as soon as I let him sit down, it was much easier for him to self-regulate. All of the years of struggle, all I needed to do was do a little bit of warm-up and activities at a desk, and we would have been fine. And I fought him for years and years and years. Now, thankfully, I had a really great relationship with his parents, with his family. His mother also commiserated about his fidgeting and his constant needing to move, and she was super supportive. But I think back now that I understand that he was uncomfortable and standing beside the piano and singing into the room made him feel very vulnerable. And it basically turned the fight or flight switch on for him. I feel really bad. And I wish I could go back in time and just recognize and meet him, because a lot of times he left my studio feeling really defeated. There was just constant nagging about him moving or not moving. And it really overshadowed our lessons. So it is important to know those behaviors that frustrate you. Now, for some, the other similar incident is the student that always interrupted. I had one of those that's always talking, always interrupts. As soon as I try to give her an instruction, she would ask me a question, but she wasn't really interested in the question, because as soon as I went to answer the question, she would ask me another question. And she would want to tell me things. And again, that is a protective thing that some children do, some humans do. It's a way of processing the space and trying to figure things out. I struggled greatly with that student. She was about 9 going on 10. I think back then, thinking about that student, I think there was an early onset of adolescence. So there was a lot going on for that student. And I wish I could go back. Wish I could go back and offer some more grounding techniques, offer some activities that maybe made her feel better. Um, so when we have behaviors that we don't like, now, obviously things like being rude or being challenging or defiant, those can be really challenging. Now, for those situations, especially with children, I recommend 100% that the families are involved in this. And my number one recommendation, is to have parents in the room. They need to see this behavior. Now, what they choose to do with that behavior is essentially up to them. But I think most parents don't know. Maybe they know, but a lot of times they don't know what exactly might be going on. So that's why I've always advocated for open door policies when it comes to families and having families in the room, because then you have a better relationship with them, a face-to-face relationship, because sending emails and texts about behavior problems is the last thing you want to do. That is going to people are definitely going to read more tone than you need, and people are going to get defensive. This is why you have these open door policies. Now, I want to talk about emotional baggage. We all have it. We all have feelings about things. So here's a question for you. What emotional baggage do you bring to your lessons that make things more difficult for your students? Maybe it's how you feel about a certain repertoire. I struggled for many years with holiday music, Christmas music. I know. What? Yes. So there was a time many moons ago where I was doing a lot of session work, and my students were also invited to sing on children's albums. And here's the thing. You had to record the Christmas albums in like July and August. I remember there was a heat wave in Toronto, and we were in the studio singing Let It Snow and all the Christmas songs. Because these sessions are long. Christmas songs are not easy to sing. They were exhausting sessions, really challenging sessions for me and my students. Great opportunities, of course. But so by the time, you've done, a handful of recording sessions singing Christmas music, when the Christmas season actually comes in your studio, which is basically like October, I was so done with it. So for the longest time, I just didn't really do a lot of holiday music with my students. And that was my baggage. because holiday music is actually a wonderful opportunity for your students and a wonderful way to celebrate the progress in lessons. And I was not giving my students that opportunity because I was done singing those holiday songs. Um, and I really shadowed the holiday season. I really did not celebrate it. It was just, I found it super stressful. And the holiday music. Anyhow, I brought that baggage into my studio and it shadowed a lot of things. And um, I want to thank my husband for calling me out on it and saying, just because you sang Christmas songs all summer doesn't mean that they might not like to sing Christmas songs all summer. So, what baggage do you bring that makes it harder? Where are you very like strict, right? What things are you not willing to bend on and why? And does it need to be that way, right? On the other side of that, holding space for your students is challenging. You probably have students, whether they're children, tweens, teens, or adults, that bring a heavy weight into your studio. The world is heavy right now. Singing is a very personal act. And we are often the only one-on-one time that our students get with us. And so this becomes a very intimate space where they can tell us things, they can talk about things, they can feel things. We want to create these safe spaces. But it also comes with sometimes a heavy emotional weight that is in our studios. So how do we work with those kids? How do we work with those adults? Do we have self-care in our lives where we can, close the studio door and go home and enjoy our families and our evenings? How do we deal with that? That is something I can think back to several students who I found it so difficult emotionally to carry. And I had to learn to set those boundaries around my own mental health, around my own space. Um, I was also teaching really long days for a while, so it was hindsight probably not the best decision, but I would I would go for longer teaching days and then only have to teach 2 days a week. That was exhausting. And at the end of the day, my energy, my executive function meter was completely deleted or depleted, and it was deleted. Um, and then I had a really hard time, spending time with my family. So those types of experiences we need to reflect on. How do we protect ourselves? How do we protect our spaces? What do we do? Right? How do we help those students without making them feel um, you know, awkward or unwelcome? Um, there's a really wonderful quote, and I think I got it from a classroom teacher. Some students are holding more than a binder when they walk through our studio doors. That's so true. All right. Moving on. Moving on. I want you to take a second. I want you to think about that student. That's right. That one student that really got under your skin, right? What has stayed with you from that experience? Bitterness? Resentment? Frustration? Are they part of the baggage that you bring into your studio now? That's a fair question. Sometimes it is a really tough experience with a student that starts to shadow how we treat others. So, what has stayed with you from that experience, right? Did they push you? How did they push you, right? Are there any opportunities? Have you taken advantage of any opportunities for growth and learning and change from that student, air quotes? Could you have been more compassionate? Could you have been more organized, more patient? Patience. Oh my goodness. If you had them again, if you invited them back, or if they came back for lessons again and you willingly let them back into your studio, what would you say to them? What would you do? Right? It's the challenging students, the difficult students that often teach us so much. It's frustrating. It can be really challenging to really look deep. I would say the exact same thing with relationships with families or customers or clients. Those clients or those families that totally sent you spiraling into a long drama filled story and problem after problem. What could you have done differently? What do you do differently now because you've learned something from that family from hell? I want to remind, and we've talked about this on the podcast, I want to remind people that most issues with families come down to poor communication on both sides. Communication is a two-way street. And yes, we often have to put incredible amounts of effort into our communication. And there is a wonderful thing to remind yourself: we can always be better communicators. We can always work on better communication, using better language, revamping our policies. The way we onboard students is a massive task list, checklist of communicating and information sharing. We can always be better at that. And here's the beautiful thing. If you hone your onboarding systems, you tend to avoid those families or that student. All right. So, I hope that this is not a traumatic podcast if you're listening right now and you're thinking about all those students and that you're just getting a little, you know, cringy about it. I certainly I do. I do. I'm going to share a couple of personal stories. I'm being very vulnerable here. I want to share a few of students that circle into my mind from time and time again. One student, this is probably a couple of decades ago. One student, lovely young adult. She was 14 when she came to me. Beautiful voice, beautiful, sweet soprano voice, and she loved to sing. And what did I do way back in the day? Well, she should do a conservatory exam because she's so talented and she'll definitely get great marks. I tortured that poor girl for about 9 months preparing her for an exam, which I chose an exam far too challenging for her. I based it on the fact that she could sing a couple of songs from that level really well, but the other skills required. That sweet girl sang songs she did not want to sing, and she did exercises she did not enjoy, and I tortured her, making her sing those harmonic minor scales and melodic minor scales. And I am pretty sure I took the joy of singing right out of her life. After she did her exam, and she did fine, she got a 82, which is a perfectly fine mark. She quit lessons. I think about that girl all the time. I can see her face, and I wish I could go back and ask her what she wanted to sing and ask her what she thought of the music. and ask her what music she liked to listen to. I wish I could go back. I hope she's still singing. I hope she is still singing. I hope that maybe she took a little break after all of the testing. Music should never be a test, should it? Music should be something we enjoy. Anyhow, I think about those students. I always go back. Now, in saying that and sharing that story, let's talk about grace and growth. When we make mistakes with students, are we able to, own up to it? Have you ever apologized to a student? I have. I have. I had a very sweet little 10-year-old, and very smart little girl, very smart. And I was getting frustrated one lesson because she's a very free spirit. She would sing and she would dance and she would move, and music really meant a lot to her. And I wanted to keep her on task, and I was trying to get her through, an exercise or try to get her whatever. I was rushing the lesson, and she was doing something with her hand. She was like tapping on the desk. We were doing something on the desk, and I reached out my hand. I can still see this in my brain. It's burned into my brain. I reached out my hand and I stopped her from tapping. And she recoiled and was so, like, her eyes were wide, and she looked terrified. Now I didn't touch her hard. I just pushed her hand down on the table. Anyhow, I should not have done that. I was frustrated. I wanted the lesson to go in a different direction, and she was not listening to me. She was enjoying the moment. Anyhow, that really upset her, and I felt absolutely horrible. Her mom called me that night because she was so upset, and I explained to her what I had done, and I said, I am so sorry. I wasn't trying to be I should not have touched her like that. And, I just touched her hand. And the mom understood. And I asked, I would really like to have an opportunity to apologize to your daughter. And would you please be there and come in? And it was an awkward situation. And I had to apologize. And she did continue lessons after that. It took a long time to build the trust again. And I really thank the mom for giving me the opportunity to apologize. And I know that, situations like that can go very wrong. If you have a parent that's not willing to facilitate that, or a family that just isn't good at communicating, it can be really challenging. Like, I'm fortunate that it ended positively. Although, to be honest with you, she just finished out the year and she did not continue the next year, which is a shame because I really did like her and she was a good little singer. But talking about grace and growth, I think I did everything within my power to apologize and to fix the situation, as awkward as it was. So again, from a learning perspective, I feel like I know better now, and not to do that, and to be mindful of those types of interactions. We forget that sometimes touching students, just in general, I don't think we should be touching our students. I know some teachers are very hands-on. There is a lot of agency that our young people don't have. And so I personally don't recommend it. I know that Dr. Shannon Coates has talked about this as well. We should be very mindful about personal space and all of those things that go along with that. I try to forgive myself for that, right? I've talked to my friends about that, and I think that I handled it the best that I could, and I know that I would not make that mistake in the future. It is important to reflect on our mistakes, on the things that you could have done better, and to have the grace to forgive yourself, right? We're all learning. We're all trying our best. So I'm gonna remind everybody one more time that teaching is as challenging as it is rewarding. And being a great teacher means continually investing in professional development and reflecting on the good, the bad, and the ugly, and taking away things that make you better takes some courage, takes some kindness, and you're doing a great job. You are. Something we always try to remind teachers at the end of our workshops, you're doing a great job. Being a teacher is a very heavy, heavy load, and it's an important job. Now, I want to let everybody know that this is wrapping up season 9. It's hard to believe that we are going into our 10th season of the Full Voice podcast, and I want to thank you for listening. Could you do me a favor? If you have found this podcast helpful, inspiring, maybe there was an episode that you truly loved, would you be so kind, please, to take a moment and send me a little message? Nikki, Nikki, at fullvoicemusic.com. Send me a message and let me know how you're enjoying the podcast. And let me know if there's a topic you'd like me to cover in season 10. Is there something in your studio that you'd love to dive into? Is there some business related things? What would you like to hear next year? Because we do take requests seriously, and I'd love to hear from you. And to my friends around the world, I also want to remind you that the world is heavy right now. There's so much going on. And holding space for people right now is harder than ever. I want you to know and to remind you that giving people a safe space to discover their voice, find confidence in their voice, is probably one of the most important things right now. And the work that you do is so very important. So, with a big hug from Nova Scotia, Canada, I am wishing you inspired teaching and happy singing. And I'll see you in season 10.